What's going on, everybody? My name is Nick.
My name is Dave.
And this is The Deep Dive. And we are doing a deep dive on the movie It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
That's right.
About Mr. Rogers.
It is.
And we have a lot to talk about.
Yes, it is.
It is a good movie. I actually have never fully seen the movie, but from the clips, I was like, man, I should watch this.
And some deep stuff to talk about, too. It's mostly content today as we talk about some great subjects that get brought up in the movie. So,
that's right.
Yeah, let's get going.
Let's do it. Well, first off, we want to say we're sorry we missed last week. Our friend Dave here was pretty sick, weren't you?
It was. I had a tough week. I hadn't been sick like that for a while, and you know, I missed doing it. It has been a good topic to talk on, but you know, we'll carry on this week. It'll be okay. How was Father's Day yesterday?
Father's Day was great for me. The girls they decorated the house a little bit. We kind of had a red, white, and blue theme. I got a new set of cornholes, so you'll have to come over and throw the bags with us.
Definitely.
And we just kind of spent most of the afternoon in the pool and hung out around here. So it was a good day.
Yeah. My family didn't get together, but we're spread out. So I think we're getting together tonight online to play Jackbox TV. You ever play Jackbox?
I have. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, we're doing that tonight.
Because there's a bunch of mini games with it, right?
Right. There's some trivia games and stuff that we do. And we did it a lot back during the quarantine and just started doing that as sort of a family gathering. So I haven't done it in a while, so it's going to be fun.
That will be
back doing tonight, yeah.
Well, why don't we jump into it? And instead, you know, normally I know we kind of sit here and we ask you to kind of give a debrief, but I think you kind of broke it up well in the sermon into about 4, maybe 5 blocks of just that kind of went along with the clips.
Yeah. If you haven't seen the movie, you undoubtedly know who Mr. Rogers is. Yeah. And the interesting thing, and I said this at the beginning of the sermon, this movie is not really like an autobiography of Mr. Rogers. It is really, the main character is somebody else, but it's their influence on this report, his influence on this reporter that was assigned to do a piece on Mr. Rogers and just how it entered into his life. This person who was going through a difficult time and had some life issues he needed to work through, and just the impact that one good man, one profoundly Christian man, which a lot of people don't know about Mr. Rogers, had upon his life. And so there's a lot to talk about, and it's a maybe a little bit of a deeper movie than what we've done with the other movies. Still a family movie, but gets into some pretty deep subjects. The first one having to do with forgiveness.
Yeah, you kind of had this clip of like a picture, like Mr. Rogers was working through this. Well, Tom Hanks, who was playing Mr. Rogers, were working through this picture board, and he was kind of naming, I guess, people in the neighborhood that he knew, and then opened a picture of the journalist who had a black eye.
Right.
And then he kind of prefaced it with like, this is a guy who needs to work on forgiveness. And
He introduces the movie that way. It starts off, it looks like an episode of Mr. Rogers. The artistic thing, they use 4:3 and 16:9 are full scale. So when it's in that sort of the 4:3, it's actually throwback to the old Mr. Rogers being on television. Right. So it looks like the beginning of the TV show, and he comes in with his picture board opening up, and then he opens up with this guy who has this awful looking black eye, and you're going like, whoa, this isn't, you know, my father's Mr. Rogers. And he said, he asked the question, I actually wrote down the quote, do you know what it means to forgive? Because he's having a hard time forgive. It's a decision we make to release a person from the feelings of anger we have at them. Let me say that one more time. It's a decision we make to release a person from the feelings of anger we have at them. That really is what forgiveness is. Yeah. And it's a hard thing to do. And sometimes the person may not even be in our lives anymore, but we still need to forgive them. Sometimes they could have passed away. Maybe they are. Maybe they're not even asking for forgiveness. But for us to get to this emotional space of just releasing that is a journey. And this man, Lloyd, had not done that with his dad. And, it was a difficult thing. It can break our lives a lot of ways.
Isn't it amazing what kind of hold anger can really like grab onto you with? Like it almost holds you captive to a certain level when you just hold on to anger, whether it's somebody who cuts you off on the road, or whether it's somebody who's really done something wrong to you that maybe you can or cannot physically or like see them and forgive them.
Yeah, and in particularly those relationships, and it could be a deep friendship we had or a family member or something that's happened to us that is kind of scarred and wounded us that goes on for years and years. And they could be completely unaware that this thing is still bothering us and still hurting us. Yeah. And it can hold us captive and really keep us from experiencing life to its fullness. And so that was a lesson that Lloyd needed to learn to do.
Yeah, and with the character in the movie, and I'm sure for many people listening or watching, that forgiveness, especially with family members or people that are that close, can sometimes even be the hardest people to, like, it feels like they should be some of the easiest people to forgive and forget, but sometimes it feels like it's the hardest too.
And I intentionally put it on Father's Day, and I wasn't trying to pick into people's lives, but I know that people will be thinking about family on Father's Day, and it really is. And a lot of people have a lot of stuff with their fathers,
Yeah.
And a lot of hangups in life, and it's just things that we need to address. And so, this man is his name Lloyd is given this job to interview Mr. Rogers, and he begins the interview and getting to know Mr. Rogers, and he meets Mr. Rogers' wife, Joanne.
Yeah.
And so there's this conversation, and he asks her, well, how does it feel to be married to a saint? And I like what she has to say, because he goes I don't like that term. I'm sure it wasn't the first time people had said that to her before. Yeah. She says, because it makes what he does unattainable. And he says he works really hard at who he is. He has these practices that he does. He prays every day. He reads scripture every day. He does exercise to sort of let it.
Swims to laps, wasn't it?
Yeah. And one of the points that she makes, and I think it's good, maybe we can drill down a little bit about that, was it's not that he doesn't have a temper. He just chooses how he responds to that anger when it comes. Yeah. And, there's this whole field and conversation around emotional intelligence. And that really is of how everybody's going to get mad, everybody's going to get angry, but how we respond to that anger is really, I think, a sign of maturity, both as a person, but also particularly in our Christian faith. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this isn't talked about enough either. Just this idea of how to handle your emotions in a way that checks. I've talked to so many people who are parents or something who feel guilty that sometimes they have to separate themselves from their kids because they're getting so mad. And I try to tell them, no, that's actually very healthy, because you are understanding yourself as opposed to letting that fire be fueled by whatever the situation is. And, from being a parent, sometimes that situation is just the kid looked at you funny after you said something, and all of a sudden it spun out into this argument or something like that, But then to be able to cognitively go, I need to separate myself from this for a little bit. That's healthy.
I mean, it's such a great practice, Nick. I'm glad you brought that up, because it is that sometimes I think a step in that maturing and understanding self-awareness is I am in no position to address this and discuss this right now. Something that we can do is take a step back. We can reach some sort of agreement that our relationship is worth it, and make a plan of when we can meet and talk about this.
Right.
Not just to put it off, but to have that conversation in the heat of the moment is doing nobody any good, and can probably even cause more harm.
Yeah, I mean, even in mine and Rachel's marriage, there are times. See, I'm a fixer. I want things to be fixed immediately.
Right.
And sometimes I need to process through it, but she also needs to process through it. So sometimes she'll look at me and be like, I need to sleep, and then we can talk about this.
Yeah.
And at times it'll drive me crazy, but it's absolutely the right call. So I will back down and say, you're right, Rachel, but I don't like it sometimes. But you know what I mean? Just having that space of I know that if I keep talking right now, I'm going to say something mean that I don't mean.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Out of your own hurt and your own reaction.
Exactly.
Psychologists tell us that anger is always a secondary emotion of what's going on. Sometimes it's just because we're tired, we're angry.
Right.
I mean, you see babies
or hungry.
They're crying and they're hungry and they're angry. And sometimes it is that emotional reaction. And that's something I do feel like we have, maybe I'm just getting old, but I just feel like we have gone backwards as a society with that. There seems to be more permission to, like, I'm mad, so that's okay. It's coming out, and that's the justification for it, for my anger and my outrage and saying something inappropriate is because I'm mad. Learning how to control that and do it in positive ways to address and say, I am angry.
Right.
And so therefore, like Rachel said, I need to calm down. I need to rest. I mean, my best self, because our relationship is too valuable. I'm worth it. You're worth it.
Right.
And
I mean, even to kind of add a little more meat to what you were kind of saying is that, like, on social media and stuff, you can find people that agree with you about being mad and stuff like that. So it almost gives you more freedom to be like, I should be angry about this, and I should speak my opinion about this, because look at all these other people being angry and speaking their opinion. It makes it right. But I would also just encourage anybody listening, even us, is just, anger is not a bad feeling if you do something with it.
Right.
It's when you just doing it and you don't try to have a resolution or whatever. Like, anger is something that has driven probably almost every major movement in our country. You know what I mean? But also it can be something that has destroyed many people, because they didn't do the right things with it, or they just sat on it and just were angry to be angry. And find your solution, I guess.
and how, I just want to go back, because you made a real good point I wanted to echo a little bit about the whole social media thing. Yeah. A lot of things are designed to make you mad and to get a response. And understand that it's not every single one of them, and sometimes it's just your crazy uncle going off on politics. But there are ads, there are posts that are put out there intentionally to get a reaction, because there is money that's attached to it. So they want you to get mad and respond and share it and put it on other stuff, and you are being used by the economic system. Yeah. And I'm not trying to be conspiracy minded. This is the way the algorithm works.
Or there are some people out there that are just internet trolls who will just say something because they know it's going to agitate somebody.
Right. Yeah. So to be able to realize and not be used by that system, we're all better off, when we're our best selves and we're our most Christian disciplined selves, and we show that emotional intelligence using to manage our own emotions. What I heard you saying, manage our own emotions. They're real, but in positive ways. Yeah. To relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, and overcome the challenges that we have, because
Do you personally have any kind of go-to coping mechanisms when you get angry?
If I'm healthy, the healthiest is if I can get out and do some exercise. I do feel like it will do me some good, even before I rest. Right. I mean, Rachel's absolutely best. Getting sometimes a good night's sleep is the best way, but sometimes I'm so wired up, I need to. So taking a walk, or getting some sort of exercise just to get my mind off things, is a really good reliever of that. Mr. Rogers every day got up same time and went to the pool, indoor pool, the Y, and swam laps every day. That's how he did it. Damn. As the movie said, he also banged on the keys. The piano. Yeah.
Well, to kind of transition into the next point, there was this clip that you showed where Mr. Rogers was sitting with a family in the hospital and was kind of talking them through this process of death and grieving and stuff like that. Right. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. That was such a great scene. Let me try to set it up a little bit, because I know not everybody's seen the movie, but this man I mentioned, Lloyd, who is a reporter, his dad and he had an estranged relationship, and his dad wanted to get back in his life because his dad was dying of cancer. And so that wasn't easy for Lloyd, but Mr. Rogers kind of helped in that and became like friends with all of them. And so now we've gotten to the end of his dad's life. I forgot what his dad's name was, but anyway, his end of his dad's life. And Mr. Rogers is going to make kind of a pastoral visit there. And so his sister is there with her husband, and his dad's new wife is there, and he goes with his wife. And everyone's talking, and what I didn't show in that clip was, they're talking about really light things. They're talking about vacation plans. They're not going to be going on vacation together. And so, it's reminiscent of other times where, hey, I think we can do this again. He's dying.
Right.
And so Mr. Rogers says this thing about to die is human. Mm-hmm. And anything human is mentionable. And anything mentionable is manageable. Anything mentionable is manageable. And I never had heard that before.
No.
But it's such a great point.
Yeah.
And I think we were talking at lunch. I've had this happen in my ministry more than a couple of times, 3 or 4 times, where it's been at the end of a person's life. And, it's usually, in every case, it's been a very elderly person. And their children will be there, and the person is dying. The the doctors have told them they're dying, but they have not told the person they are dying.
Yeah. Because
they're trying to protect them. And so I might have a moment with them, and they've looked at me and said, what is going on? I need to know. Because we're scared to talk about the really hard things. And when we talk about the really hard things, and it may be, it's really how I'm applying it to death there, because death is hard to talk about. But it can be anything, any hard conversation we need to have with some people. And it's really at the heart of how codependency can happen. And you've heard the whole adage, don't talk about mama's drinking because it'll make her drink more. Right. Well, there's a family conversation that needs to be talked about in the right way. Yeah. So anything mentionable being manageable, I love that whole concept, and I know it's difficult and hard, but in order to grow, sometimes hard conversations need to take place.
Yeah, conversationally, but also even situational, Yep. If there are, if you're trying to do anything that seems to be, really hard, whether it's, you really want to lose a bunch of weight, or you want to go forgive somebody, or something that just, can really shut you down a little bit, make you feel like you can't do it. If you can mention it, you can do it, and I think that's what the beautiful 100%. Way that this is phrased is because it almost goes back to, you can do all things in Christ. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean, it's not telling you that the road is just going to be like a slide that you're just going to slip down and then you'll be immediately there.
Yeah.
But it's doable.
Yeah, that really, I love that point, Nick, because that really opens it up even larger than I was thinking about it. Yeah. But yeah, that is true. We can put something in words and articulate it. Then, with Christ on our side, we can begin to work on whatever challenge that might be. Yeah. I do also look at it, though, is that the things that sometimes don't get said. You ever had a person you've been close to, and maybe something happened, and maybe you're very well aware of what happened, right. And so you're together with that person, and things aren't right, and you're just not talking about it. Mm-hmm. And if things are ever going to get right again,
the proverbial elephant in the room or something like that,
it has to at some place be talked about. Yeah. This hurt me. I hurt you. I had a different opinion on this. Whatever it is, it right. has to be addressed, and just to step around and sidestep just keeps us on this very superficial level that really never goes anywhere.
And I know there's people out there who don't like confrontation. I know there's people out there.
I hate it.
I know there's people out there who get overwhelmed by a situation they can't predict because they're analytical and they don't know where it's going to go. But I'm telling you, that whatever the situation that might be in your head right now, for those who are listening, it's manageable.
Right.
And whether that means you need to grab somebody to kind of walk with you to help kind of guide and push you, do that. Or if it's just you finally going, I can actually do this, or whatever, whatever the situation is, start. I think I often tell people, and I forgot, I think this actually came from Frozen 2. which we're talking about movies, but I think there's a song in there. It's called the next right step, or the idea behind the song is just make the next right step.
Right.
And you don't have to be looking at the finish line to do the next right step.
Right.
So whatever the situation is, know that if it's mentionable, it's manageable, but then take that next right step. Whatever that is.
Yeah.
Whether it's I need to work on forgiving somebody, take that next right step to maybe set up a time to actually have a conversation with them.
And maybe it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about that. Sometimes we make great plans, and where I find that has helped me at times is that, like, I may make a plan. Let's take something as simple as like being on a diet.
Right.
Okay. So so then, like, I go to a birthday party and completely blow it.
Right.
Okay. So I can say, okay, well, I'm off of it now. Well, no, take the next right step.
Correct.
And so, what's the next right thing?
You had that big piece of cake. Tomorrow?
What's the next right thing to do? Now, so that's in a physical way, but like it's the same thing with emotional things. Like, okay, you're working on your relationship with, say, your spouse, and you've agreed not to talk to each other in certain ways, and you get tired one time, something happens, you snap and you do it. Well, take the next right step.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's gone forever. Take the next right step.
Right.
Anything mentionable is manageable. Great advice.
And to me, this was the, if you had that like 1-2 punch in your sermon, like, to me, this was it for me. Like, this is the one that kind of really hit me, because if we want to kind of go with the Father's Day theme, I think one of the biggest lessons my dad ever taught me was that in even the craziest of situations, try your best to keep your head so you can think logically about it and find your way out. And he was telling me about a story one time where he was working with boats and he actually fell out of the boat, but it was one of those boats that you would guide with the propeller or with the handle.
Right.
And it was actually tilted one way. So he's out of the boat and this boat is like circling him. And he's like, you could freak out there and be like, well, if I miss this, I'm going to get cut or whatever. But if you keep you keep your mind about it, if you mention the problem, you go, okay, it's manageable. How can I manage it? You know what I mean? Like, to just keep it in simple terms. That's probably one of the biggest lessons he taught me in my life, which is what I would give credit to where there's not many things I freak out about. You know what I mean? Like, there are things that stress me out and there are things that might shut me down for a moment, but not much like totally freaks me out. It's just, okay, let's get it, and now let's find the solution. So, just to kind of go with the Father's Day theme, I thought that was
for sure. Yeah, that's great. I love that example. Yeah, and I would agree that you don't freak out very easily too. Yeah, so that's good.
That's good. Yeah, at least it works. I don't know, not just thinking something that I'm not. Well, so the last one, you kind of brought up this idea of masculinity and how, they kind of viewed Mr. Rogers as maybe not the
ideal male. Yeah.
But can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, in a couple of people, I'd also mention a guy named Henry Nouwen, who was a very gentle person and thought of him. And, in just the era that we're living in, and I think men need to be men, for sure. But the idea of what a man is, I think we need to revisit that hard and look at Jesus and who Jesus was. Mr. Rogers was an advocate for children. He was very courageous with a lot of things he does. Because he worked with children, there's some men that we might even look down on him. Yeah. And so just like redefining what a man is. We live in an era where what's being elevated right now is a lot of toxic masculinity, a lot of the hyper male. What's been looked at as leadership is people that are able to gin up a crowd to be angry about what you're angry about what they already are about, and it's really not being a man, and it's really not about being a leader. Yeah. Having the courage to find solutions, to find peaceful solutions, for bringing people together. That's what leadership is. That's what being a man is. Yeah. And I think we defined it as like somebody that can, be up there, who's the guy painting his face blue, Braveheart. It's kind of
William Wallace.
the Braveheart thing. That's been so applauded, and I get it.
Sure,
but is that what a true man is? Or is a true man maybe looking or also looking at somebody like Mr. Rogers,
right?
And or Henry Nouwen, or even my own father. My father was a very gentle person, an incredibly kind person.
Yeah.
But a person kind of like you that didn't get freaked out about very much, was that center of the storm for a lot of people.
Right.
And I just think here on this Father's Day, we need to, I think, remind ourselves and remember about what a man does and how he leads.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my final point.
Well, and I think it is valid. I think we have been pushed to think of being a man as, like I have to run things, or I have to build things, or I have to be the strongest, or whatever. And none of that is bad. It's not bad to be a leader.
Yeah.
But it's not good to be a toxic leader, to where it's like, I'm just getting a bunch of yes men around me that'll agree with me so I can send them out into the battle first, so they'll die before I die, or whatever, But I also think that when you think of manliness, like if we're saying we're Christian, who's our example? Well, Jesus,
yeah.
Right? And everybody expected, there's a reason why there's a couple different groups of Jews out there, right?
Yeah.
Is because some didn't accept Jesus as their Messiah because they expected a king-like Messiah. Back then it was about conquering and how much land you could acquire, and bringing peace through a ruling right hand or whatever, as opposed to Jesus, as he's coming in on a donkey, and he's coming in peace, and he's teaching this idea of loving and being a neighbor. So there's a big contrast.
Our Messiah is the one who, we've been oppressed by our enemy, and our Messiah is going to come and destroy our enemy. And Jesus came to reconcile all things. Correct. And to love all people. And so when Jesus did not come in as the person who was going to crush the Romans, there were a lot at that time that reject them.
Right. Jesus and Caesar were very different people, but people were looking for a Caesar type, who would rule. So I think it's still today is that there's this kind of servant leadership style of love that really men are called to be in some ways, but also, how do we find that balance in there?
We need men who will love their children and lay their lives down for the children, and not just be sort of the silent, strong type, but people that will really invest themselves. We'll see that in this next coming week as we look at Mary Poppins and Mr. Banks, and his sort of evolution through the movie. So just a bridge to that. We got one more week of this series. Real Faith. I've enjoyed doing it. I would love to hear some feedback on it. I've only heard good things that people have liked that. And so, something we'll continue. We won't do it every month, but we'll probably do it once a year.
Sure.
Maybe we'll do it sometime around Christmas, and not this year, but in a few years maybe. Yeah. Because there's a lot of great Christmas movies. But, I think it's a good thing. It's a good little exercise to do, and helps us think, I think, theologically. But one more week. And this week we're going old school with Mary Poppins. So we'll see what comes of that.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
There you go. You're already there.
Yeah, it'll be good. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Well, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being a part. Always feel free to send us comments in the email, or drop them in the comment section below. Let us know if you're watching. Just give us your feeling on how the series is going. If there's any movies that you feel like you see a lot of God in, and because we're always looking for ideas. Even Dave a couple weeks ago was texting around like, what kind of movies can we also do?
Well, that's how we ended up with Mary Poppins this week.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, your wife had a little bit to do with that, and Nicole and a few others.
Yeah.
I texted to get where we go this last movie. I think it was Nicole who said, "I'd go old school with Mary Poppins."
There you go.
Not her words, mine, but that's what she was saying.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not sure I see Nicole saying that, but we'll go with it. Anyway, well, thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
All right. God bless everybody.